Saad here in the studio in London, and very soon I'm going to be joining Gregory, or Gregory will be joining us. Greetings, Gregory.
Hello,
How are you doing?
very well. And you?
Okay, your volume is a bit low on our side. We'll have to just. Can you increase the volume a little bit on his
Can
side?
you hear me now?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, yeah. Carry. Start. Say again.
Can you hear me very well now?
It's a little bit better.
Okay, I'll increase the
So yes, a
volume.
little bit louder. We're going to make it a little bit more loud.
Okay.
So, dear
Yeah,
listeners, welcome to the show. Gregory, I'm here in London as usual. It's been very hot today, 33 degrees here. It's still sunny and bright, but it's all turning, let's say, with showers and thunderstorm tonight, then going to be cooler from tonight. So please tell us where you are and how is the weather there?
I'm in Brussels and it's very hot.
Very
It's
hot?
about 35 degrees.
Wow, okay. And are you expecting it to get cooler from tomorrow?
Um, Not really.
I see, okay. Okay, so we know here it is definitely. Okay, welcome to the show. So, dear
Thank you.
listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio, as I said, the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And we have a new topic every week. The topic for tonight is courage. And you can join in with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it's 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, this word courage, I mean, it's such a strong word. You just immediately when you think of this word, uh, a lot of things depend on that word. Being courageous, basically, and even just to let's say survive in today's world is quite a courageous job. It's not. You know, I know even in the West, where people think it's easy in some ways with the money and so on, but still, with everywhere basically, I would say you have to deal with your challenges and things in life, and in order to be successful, or in order to even, let's say, stand for important things in life, you have to have courage. So I think really the first question really it has to be really what is courage, and I did actually look up in the dictionary, and if I can find what I looked at. Yes, the ability to control your fear in a dangerous or a difficult situation. Another word for it is bravery. And then an example they gave, this is in the dictionary they gave, although many of his policies were unpopular, he had the courage of his convictions to see them through. So, I mean, immediately when you see that, you think uh, that it's a big effort on our part to have this courage. So yeah, please can you help us? What uh, what can we? What is the definition of courage, or what would you define courage as?
Well, thanks for that question. But before we start, I thought we normally start with some
Oh,
introduction
yes,
about, yeah, so I wonder
yes.
what is happening.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. It just slipped my mind. Thank you so much for reminding me. Um, I have a person on the line. I'll just tell him to. Can you just hold on, please? Thank you. Okay, so dear listeners, yes, I always start with what is the Grail message, and somehow today it just slipped my mind, so apologies for that. So, what is the Grail message? The Grail message, in the light of truth, by Abdushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I want to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps, which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace, if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you again, the topic for tonight is courage, and you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00 44 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, let's go back to where we were earlier on. I mentioned about, well, the topic is courage and the definition of courage that I'll just read it again. The ability to control your fear in a dangerous or difficult situation. Another word you can use for courage is bravery. And one example they gave in this dictionary I looked at, it says, although, this is an example of courage being used in a sentence here. So, although many of his policies were unpopular, he had the courage of his convictions to see them through. So, Gregory, what I'd like to ask you there is, how would you describe courage? Yeah.
Well, many thanks for that question. First, for one to look at the scenario where courage may be used and or may be utilized. Whenever courage is mentioned, then there must be some task at hand which needs to be accomplished in order to reach a goal. If there is no task to be accomplished, then how can one talk about courage? So, generally and specifically, it is the quality of determination that is required to accomplish a task that leads to a goal. I will repeat that. It is the quality of determination that is required to accomplish a task or specific task in order to reach a goal. At the same time, using that as the basis, one has to look at the different categories of courage. When courage is mentioned, there is the example of physical courage. There's also the example or the instance of intellectual courage. And finally, there is the other one, which one may mention, the spiritual courage, which spiritual courage has to do through one's intuitive perceptions. In all this, there are tasks to be accomplished in order to reach a specific goal. That is why one has now described or defined courage as the quality of determination, because the personality must be determined to accomplish a specific task or a set of tasks. Else, one would not reach that goal.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Yes, it's really helpful to look at it like that, because you wouldn't, if you didn't say that, I would say it wouldn't be obvious at all that that's exactly what it is. Because normally you took it out of the context. Oh, in this situation, can you hear me, Gregory?
Yes, I can hear you.
So in that situation, when it's like something's happening, and then you suddenly have to do something. I'm talking almost like react in a situation which is either, as I mentioned in my definition, where there's a danger or there's a fear, and suddenly you have to have courage. But this, of course, that's not the only situation. It can be just standing for your belief or conviction and so on. And that you can do at any point. You don't have to be in danger for that. So yes, so thank you for pointing out that this is about a task. Actually, I have a question from a listener which I would like to sort of bring up now.
Yes.
Which is, how do we measure or our understanding of courage? They say, what is courage to one may be absolute stupidity to another. And an example that they have given is a fireman runs into a burning building, which is obviously obvious that this is a courageous. And then we have another sort of act which may not be so obvious. So then what about with people who have daily panic attacks, where there's a fear to fail, and it rises like a mountain before the inner eye, and yet something deep within helps to quell that fear, and then they climb again, and now they can continue with their tasks, their daily tasks. So with the fireman, of course, we know he's sort of jumping into the fire, let's say, aware of it, aware. I mean, of course, he doesn't know what will be there when he gets there, but he's already prepared in a way. And then here, another example where somebody, has daily panic attacks, where they have to just to sort of do daily tasks, like you've said, they need to overcome that. So, is that?
Well, you have described a scenario, and in fact, you have discussed or described two scenarios. The first one is the case of a firefighter, and in the definition which one put down as a guide, One has talked about physical courage. One has also talked about intellectual courage. At the same time, there is a spiritual courage which springs from the intuitive perception. It is the person who is engaged in that particular scenario who is able to call forth from these categories we just mentioned. In one scenario, when you see a fireman, the fireman does not just jump in. All this while, the fireman has been preparing for different scenarios. And based on his judgment, his intellectual judgment, or his physical judgment, and above all, what he himself has perceived spiritually or through his intuition, that is what grants him the courage to move forward or not to move forward. You might find that a building is collapsing, and as it's collapsing, one should not just expect the fireman to jump in to a collapsing building, because he or she might not have prepared for that scenario. But in the case of a fire, because they have had their preparation, they are able to make judgment in a split second on how to proceed. So these things which we observe externally are not accomplished in a rash manner, but are accomplished in a systematic manner, in a lively manner, because there is the judgment of that particular person or of that personality with regards to the fire, or what challenges have arisen that he or she has to make a decision. So it is not just arbitrary. But the same thing goes with the challenges that we face every day. These challenges may be physical, these challenges may be intellectual. At the same time, these challenges may have their origin in one's intuitive perception or in the spiritual environment. There is the need to coordinate the three of them so as to make the right judgment on how to respond to any particular situation. But for many who observe these things externally, they are unable to explain how a person will respond. But he or she who is in that scenario, if they apply their innate abilities, their innate spiritual abilities, with such a determination, by crying out and asking for help, then some help is granted, maybe in the form of a rope being thrown out to them so they can hold on that to gradually, step by step, overcome the challenges. These ropes which are, in quotes, thrown out to the person that has challenges may be in form of helps from friends or from music or clarity arising all of a sudden. But they are manifold, and one cannot hold on to one specific example and say, this is it. But he or she who feels it knows it, because the help will come, all depending on how they have prepared themselves, or how they have prepared their environment, such that help will come when they cry out or when they long for it.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that answer. It shows how much we have to reflect about these things. So, to understand, how deep and how wide-ranging this, the courage can, see the effects of courage and how it works. So I have a person on the radio called in, and I want to put him online now. Um, Let me just make sure he's online now. Hello,
Yes, I
listener.
am.
Are you there?
Hello? Yes, I am.
Okay, welcome to the show. Please say your name and yes, yes. If you have a question, please ask the question or whatever you
Yeah,
would like to comment.
good evening, Bros G and Bros Sad. My name is Mena, and
Mena.
I'm calling from the heartland in the world. On
Okay.
Earth. So quickly, I have a definition of courage here, which says is a state or the quality of mind or spirit that enables one to face danger, fear, or vicissitudes with self-possession, confidence, and resolution, bravery.
Yes.
So, yeah, from my definition, or this is my definition, they tell you, say, look, courage, not the physical quality, is actually a spiritual quality. How you say it?
Just say it again.
Yeah,
For your
this
definition, courage is what?
a spiritual quality.
Spiritual quality.
It's more of a spiritual quality.
Yes. And you said that it is what it is. There's something you said it is not as well.
Hold on, please. Let me get it back again.
Yeah. Greg, are you able to
Yeah.
hear Mena?
It wasn't clear. Maybe you have to repeat the question.
Yes, I will. I will do that.
Um,
It's also on my side. It's not so as clear as I can hear you. So,
yeah. Okay.
okay, Mena, I
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I said the quality, the definition of courage when I get to here, now the state or the quality of the mind or spirit. It's the
State of
quality of the spirit.
right.
Yeah, it
Yes.
says the quality of the mind or spirit
Right.
that enables one to face danger, fear, vicissitudes with self-possession, confidence, and resolution, bravery.
Bravery. Yes.
So, Professor G, they tell us saying, you have a spiritual quality, a spiritual courage, and you have a physical courage. I did, what it tell me? What's in my dictionary? Tell me say the courage now quality of the spirit itself.
Yes. Okay, Gregory, I'll just repeat what Mena has just said there. He's saying that from his definition, courage is basically purely a spiritual quality, and it depends on the state of the mind and or the quality of the spirit, really.
Mm.
So the and not he thinks it's not physical,
It's not a
and
physical. Mm.
not physical. Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah. So how would you respond to that? You think because you did say it was spiritual and physical, and actually it was a third thing which I've now forgotten as well, third quality as well.
When one when one was defining what courage is, one mentioned the quality of determination that is required to accomplish a task to reach a goal. And one went on to identify the different categories. First, standing above the others is the spiritual. Below that is the intellectual, and below that is the physical. Now, you have scenarios where you might have physical courage, but there is no spiritual courage. The case of, is everything all right there?
Not quite on my side, Gregory. You can carry on talking. It's just some listeners saying that my voice is not as loud as yours and other. They can't hear me so clearly. So
Okay.
we're just trying to sort that out. But please continue with your answer.
The case of war, where you have war being declared by an aggressor that has a lot of military hardware. And because of this military hardware, they tend to have physical courage because they wish to accomplish a task. But were you to search their souls, spirituality is not even considered, because all they want to do is to destroy another human spirit, or to destroy another realm, or because at the same time they covet what the other people possess. This has always happened in many scenarios. Consider the Incas. The Incas had spiritual courage, but when it came to that which is the physical, they were not able to match the Spaniards, who came and destroyed all that they had built up. So you find that courage has different ramifications. The final one is that which is spiritual. And then you come to intellectual courage. Then one may also discuss physical courage.
Thank you, Gregory, for that. Again, I'm sort of quite really happy that you're clarifying these things, and very distinctly. So, Mena, if you just hold on, I'm going to think of. Do you want to respond to that, Mena? Or
Yes.
you want to respond? Okay.
Uh, uh, Professor G, good evening. Thanks for your response. Which as you explained, so if you say when you want, you know, exhibit, perhaps you want to express.
Sorry, may I make a request?
Yes, go ahead.
This program is being listened to by people globally, even in the West Indies. And some may not understand the language which is being utilized. Therefore, one is requesting that we should try to use a language to communicate such that many will benefit, rather than a few who understand the language which this questioner is using.
Okay. So, Mena, can you just speak in the, let's say, I don't want to use this in this way, in quotes, the Queen's English, and just for the sake of, let's say, get a greater understanding in the world, let's say. So, just like I'm going to call it standard English, so it's not like I'm putting emphasis on anybody. So, yeah.
I can.
But I think,
Yeah,
you haven't, I mean, for me, I am able to follow most of what you say, so, but go ahead again.
I kind of understand that, but now the language where person know now speak is it's just obvious. I can't manufacture speaking German when I don't know how to speak it.
Yeah.
So make bros understand that one too. I'll try my
Uh,
best
Okay,
to,
the
just try.
question
yeah.
is not for me per se, because I'm cognizant that there are many listeners and they will want to also share in the understanding that you have. So it's necessary to make that effort.
Yes.
You do not know the sort of challenges many have, and they will be asking, they wish they could understand what you're saying. So it will be very helpful if from your part you make the extra effort so that they will understand and share in the discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if
Yes,
yeah, and if
I do appreciate that.
yeah, and if there's anything
And
unclear, Gregory, just please just repeat the question. Basically, I would say just repeat it in.
okay. So
Yeah.
the response you gave, you
Yeah.
now classified courage in three. One is spiritual, one is intellectual, and the other one should be physical. I want to argue that the undermining impetus that drives the courage is the spirit, regardless of whether it's intellectual, physical, or spiritual itself. It's not the spirit that drives courage. It's not. Is it not the basic quality of the spirit?
So I'm going to
Hello.
repeat that. Okay. Is that it? Is that it,
Yes, please.
Mina?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll just repeat that, Gregory. So what he's saying, Mina is saying, is that um, the driving force of the courage is, even if it is intellectual and even if it is intellect, uh,
Physical.
physical,
Yeah.
behind that is the spiritual, and so that is the
It's the
main
spirit.
driver. Um, would you agree with that, or would you say it's not quite like that?
When things are said to be of the spirit, that which is spiritual, we want to act in such a way as to accomplish, as to swing within the laws of creation. But many an activity nowadays, when you have the cases of corruption, where many will prefer to spend on themselves the resources that are meant for a nation, they have that physical or intellectual courage to accomplish that task, which is an ignoble task. Such does not draw them higher to the goal which the spirit longs for. So it is very difficult to classify such as being spiritual. What is spiritual in killing fellow human spirit? What is spiritual in stealing from fellow human spirit? What is spiritual in seeing those in need, and instead of you to attend or to assist them, you ignore them and take even the little that they have? What is spiritual about that? Such a scenario, which we know exists, require courage, but that one may not classify as spiritual courage. For such spirits are indeed asleep or are sinking very rapidly, but they do not know of it. So one will not classify those things as spiritual courage. That which is of spiritual courage presents itself in a much different way. For the spirits, once it is fully aware or alive, whatever resources it receives from the source, from on high, it will first make use of it to benefit not only itself, but also its environment. and that is those who also reside in the environment. It will strive to ensure that whatever it does are in harmony with the laws of creation through which it and the constituents of creation came into existence. That is what one will refer to as spiritual courage, because it knows that the task which is engaged in will be of benefit. And as can be expected when it is said, the power that streams in from on high, we need to make use of it such that it brings us benefits, not push us down. So one has to be very conscious of what spiritual courage means.
Thank you again, Gregory, for clarifying and really hitting the point, I will say, on that question. I'm going to sort of move forward now, but before I do, I just want to tell listeners, dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And the topic we're discussing tonight is courage. You can join in the discussion by contacting this UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you are outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And dear listeners, if you are interested in to pick up a copy of the Grail message or get some more information, you can visit this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Now, Gregory, Mena, you want to say something?
Yes, yeah, I did listen to Gregory's response, but I'm still not settled as to why he wouldn't see courage as being put into wrong use when it becomes physical.
When it becomes visible, did you say?
Physical.
Physical.
When you say physical, yeah, if you just merely intellectualize courage,
Okay, so
it's courage being put into wrong use.
So what I'm going to ask you, Mena, this question then.
Okay.
What is it that you did not see that you felt that it was not answering that? Because for me it was clear, but what point?
Yeah, it did make it clear. But what I'm saying is that courage is a basic quality of a spirit.
Yes.
Which could be put into wrong use.
Right.
That's how I see it.
So it can be used in the wrong use. It can be applied to wrong use. So,
yes, exactly.
Okay, so, and I think Gregory was implying spiritually. I don't want to speak for Gregory actually, but let me just say this, and I'll let Gregory come in again. So, Gregory, what I understood from you was that it is a spiritual quality, courage, and the spirit would not, let's say, commit evil acts. It's not. That's not what it's. It's not. Those acts can't. The spirit is not capable of doing evil acts. So those evil acts only happen, let's say, at a physical level. Am I correct to say that, or do you want to respond to that?
Partially, you are correct to say that, but one has to look at this thing very objectively. A spirit that is asleep, that means it is not exerting itself as such, but is intellectually very bright. as you will have with many an intellectual, or for someone who is so very strong physically, in the case of a boxer. The case of a boxer that will subdue and beat up the opponent because he wants to be a champion. You ask yourself, of what benefit is it to the spirit that is awake? These are the sort of questions you would one should ask oneself. So if these things are of no benefit to the spirit, how can one then say that the courage which they displayed in the ring is of spiritual quality? These are the questions each personality must ask themselves.
Thank you. Mena, is anything you would like to say
No,
back?
no. Let's carry on. Let's go
Yes.
on.
Okay,
Thank you.
good.
Yeah.
So, yes, so let's continue. Um, Now, Gregory, what I want to ask you now is I would say the majority of people are like followers, they're not really, you would say they're not really showing courage. And, because let's say people, let's talk at a particular aspect, which is like, say, faith. You know, most people, I would call them, those who believe in their religion, let's say, are blind followers. And then, let's say, when they have discussion maybe with somebody else of another faith or something else that makes them question their own faith, and then they realize, oh, maybe what I believe isn't actually quite right. And then for them to move away from what they've been holding on to probably for years, and obviously the people that are around them that they either worship with, or let's say society or community that they live in, if they were to move away from that because they realize, oh, hang on, there's something wrong here, what I've been following, I don't want this, I don't want to do that now. For them to move away from that, it would take a real courage. So my question is, I think in a way you said something at the beginning, but I just want to sort of put it in this context particularly. How can one be, let's say, have the courage to move away, with something that you have been believing for years, let's say, which is close to your heart, and then suddenly something opens your eyes and shows, hang on, that's not what is, that's not right, that's not what is, I need to go away from here. How can one, leave? Because in this case, I would say, especially when it's a matter of faith, you'll see, maybe I don't need to be here, I need to be somewhere else, I need to go away from here. How can somebody have this courage to go, to leave, what they've been following for so long?
Again, thanks for this question. For so long, many have been spiritually asleep, but they had considered belief as spiritual wakefulness. For were the spirit as stir as it should be, then they themselves would have examined all that came their way. But they had accepted without question what has been passed on to them. Maybe along the line, they are just waking up from their spiritual sleep. That means the spirit is now examining through experiences that has accosted it. It's now waking up from its slumber and having sensed that what it has accepted all this while may not be true. It then decides to break away. Now, where courage comes in is that quality of determination that is required to accomplish a goal that goal, which is a spiritual goal, that the personality longs for. So it is just waking up from its sleep, and it needs the help that it requires spiritually in order to journey on to experience creation the way it should, rather than holding on to a belief which it hasn't examined to become a personal conviction. So it's a matter of someone who has been asleep and now just waking up. And as you very well know, once you wake up in the morning, you become aware what is around you, and you start making sense of what is around you. In the past, when one was asleep, because one was not able to examine these things objectively, whatever was thrown under the canopy of faith was just accepted. And it was said, believe, and the way will be opened. But now they have seen that is not the case. The advice one may give is to continue with a firm determination. This is where the courage comes in. A firm determination. That is what opens the path. A firm determination for self-improvement.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer. Um, just
Can I?
yeah. Sorry, listeners, my voice went down again. Apologies for that. Hopefully, it's now loud again, so you can hear me loud and clear. Yes, thank you for that. Really, it just shows all these questions that we are asking. We have to look at them from a spiritual point of view, where in the situation, any situation, how is our spirit? Are we awake? Are we sleeping? And when the spirit is awake, then obviously you see things clearly. And that's
Can I add something to that?
yes, Mena, go ahead.
Yes, please. From what Gregory has explained, I'm still insisting on the point that a spirit that is not awake would
Yeah.
express his courage, or mere physically, would just have a intellectual, force to express his courage. Why someone who is spiritually awake would express courage as it should be expressed. I mean, the subject.
Just to understand what you said there, because I didn't quite follow that. So you're saying a spirit that is awake,
Yes.
why would
would
it express intellectually? Just
No,
say
no, no, no,
say
no,
so
no.
say
Would
that again. I didn't quite follow that.
would express spirit, would express, or would express courage spiritually, would give a spiritual backing to his courage, while someone whose spirit is asleep will give his courage a mere physical backing. Do you get it?
Not quite. Can you give an example?
Right. If I'm intellectualizing my courage, I may just,
Yeah.
I might just revert to, I may just look at the physical qualities. I just say, okay, maybe I want to maybe beat up someone mainly because of his wealth.
Right.
You understand that?
Yes.
But if I'm beating up someone, if I'm trying to give it a different, if I'm giving it a spiritual understanding, I'll look at how I can really empathize with that person,
Right.
and instead of beating him up, try to maybe use an alternative means.
Yes. So
Do you understand that? Yeah.
okay. So just repeat the question now again. Just repeat that question.
No,
So
no. So what I'm saying is that
yeah.
that courage is a basic quality of the spirit. But if your spirit is slumbering, it
Yes.
might express its courage mere physically.
Okay.
But yeah, but when a spirit is alive, he might give a spiritual input to his courage.
Yes. But if I'm correct, what you're saying, we don't only act in the spiritual, we also act in the physical. So it doesn't matter if you're a strong, wide awake spirit or if you're a sleeping spirit, you can still act. I mean, both of them you can act in this physical way, right?
You separate it, and I am contesting, but carry on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
May
trying
I
to.
may I
Yeah,
suggest, may I add that courage must be cultivated.
Hmm.
It is a token which needs to be cultivated, for it is a virtue. So
okay.
it's not that the spirit already possesses it.
Yeah,
It
I
has
agree
to be
with you.
cultivated through
Yeah,
experiences.
yeah,
All right? It is those personal experiences that bring conviction.
all right.
So it's not that one just say, I have spiritual courage. For one who may say so, by their activities, one can already sense that indeed they have spiritual courage.
No,
But as is well known, it's not a matter of belief. Belief, as has been said, must become conviction. And conviction only comes through inflexible weighing and examining. Examining and weighing with the spirit. That is an activity. Courage, because you are a human spirit, does not just come and say, I'm courageous. It has to be cultivated. It is only when it is cultivated that it becomes a property, a feature of the human spirit.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Gregory. And I want to ask, just following on from what you said there, um, so can somebody be trained in developing their courage, or is it something you just have to grow in experience, go through experiences?
Again, depending on the personality, yes, one can be trained to cultivate courage. It is the experiences that the spirits acquire in the process of its existence. It is the determination, the quality of determination that it requires to accomplish the task which have been set in creation, which tasks involve allowing their spirits to come to maturity. The process of starting as a spirit gem and growing up to become conscious, and then continuing with that to become self-conscious. These are activities which the human spirit needs to accomplish, and courage needs to be cultivated. Some determination needs to be there. So you have the scenario of a restless human spirit. Deep within is restless because it senses there is a need for continuous activity and there are challenges. Only when these challenges have been overcome or accomplished, only then will it acquire the maturity. Gradually, it builds up and becomes courageous. There is no limit to it because it we accomplish the first task, it will go on and accomplish another task. Take, for instance, that of a human spirit, say in the earthly sense, who wishes to learn to play music. First, it may play, the guitar. It needs some courage and patience, understanding, perseverance. These qualities are virtues that is required to master how to play the guitar. It might leave that and decide to also play the trombone or to play the piano. So there must be tasks which needs to strengthen the spirit, to strengthen one's determination. One step we only grow out of a completed step or a completed previous step. So that is how one builds up. It's not that courage has already been there, but it has to be cultivated in each task that needs to be accomplished. For these tasks, like one mentioned, require patience, they require perseverance, they require good volition, they require the understanding of one's neighbor. So these are the things which the human spirit needs to cultivate. For if one listens or reads the Lord's Prayer aright, and when he said, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. We ourselves, through our activities, need to bring the kingdom that is filled with flaming and wondrous activities down to the earth. And is making a vow that one is going to strive to do this. And it says, Thy will be done on earth as it is done in heaven. Again, another vow. These require very strong activities, not only spiritual, but also intellectual and also physical courage that needs to be cultivated, that needs to be harmonized in order to achieve this right here on earth. So it is filled with activities.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that, how can I say, enlightening, explanation. Um, okay,
Yeah.
so now, Gregory, what I want to say is, all of this, what you've said, you're getting, let's say, getting stronger in courage, but in all these activities. But let's say, what happens in real life, um, because obviously, we talked about the fireman who's taking a risk uh, when he's trying to tackle a fire, but there's a bit of judgment involved, and so he can protect himself as well. But there's some situations which are, let's say, a bit of the unknown. You can't really tell what's going to happen, and because you can't predict how people will react to what you say. So now let's pick an example here. Um, so if, let's say, I've got two things in my head actually right now. Let me go for this one medical one. So, Gregory, let's imagine where somebody's suffering a particular illness, whatever it is, and there's not really a known medical cure, let's say in the conventional medicine. And however, there's some research going on. Some scientists are doing research, or some other people are doing some research, and uh, let's call him the patient who is suffering whatever that illness it is willing to be experimented on this new research they're developing. and of course it is something in the unknown. Uh, should somebody, would you call that, as it was said earlier, is that courageous, being courageous, or stupidity to just say, okay, let me trust these people and just go in there and take this treatment which hasn't been tested fully, and just see what happens. And maybe they might even go with the attitude that even if they don't get they don't get better, it might help people in the future, that with the results that happen to this particular patient, something might be discovered, and then it can be improved for the next time for the people in the future. So would you call that still courage, that somebody is doing that, going into the unknown, trying something of the unknown, and because you have no idea this is going to work or it's not going to work?
Each scenario and each participant in a scenario is always there to make a decision. In the making of a decision, one relies sometimes on physical or intellectual judgment. On very rare occasions do you find people who now listen to their intuitions in order to make a judgment. If the participants in that scenario decides to go ahead with such, it is assumed that he or she would have weighed all the different parts as far as he or she is capable. But let each personality sharpen their intuition to be able to make a decision. For what you find there, suppose it is poison that is likely to be dumped into one's system. Long time ago, where needles were used for injections and things were not cleaned up, many caught AIDS. They caught AIDS because they did not know, but they were willing to put themselves in a scenario which they were not sure of. For one who listens to their intuition, they will have to make a judgment. A simple example, there is a part which a man goes into the bush or into the meadow with his dog almost on a daily basis. And this path has been trodden for more than 30 years. And a day came, the dog refused to go with the man, but the man proceeded on his own because he feels he is compelled. He wants to take his stroll. And as he went along, there was an accident. Then he came back, this time injured terribly. Who is to blame? The question now is, must we at any time not weigh a situation, even if we are used to it? To be alive means to examine all that occurs you and not to take it for granted. If on one hand one wants to serve as an experiment in order to help others, that is well and good. But it therefore means the participant has made a decision. The returns about that, of what he has made will now depend on what made him do it or what made her do it. The motive, whether it was an intellectual motive or a physical motive or a spiritual motive, all these things have to be determined. But the key thing why we have this discussion is an introduction to the work in the light of truth, which in the process of examining what is there, one's intuition may open wide such that the individual is able to participate in as many scenarios as possible, not only intellectually, but also spiritually. Why is man here on earth? In order to experience physically and pass the experiences through the frontal brain to the back brain, right back to the spirit. For it is the spirit that counts. If, on the one hand, those experiences do not get back to the spirit, then man is still immature and is still in doubt over very many things. So let man take heed and engage in that which is going to be of benefit to it.
Thank you again, Gregory, for your explanation. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdul Shin. And if you want to get more information or get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight, I think if you've been listening, you will know it's courage. You're very welcome to join us with any question or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it's 0044 79 444 31366. Mena, is there anything you would like to ask now?
Yeah. No, just to accept his explanation, Gregory's explanation. I still insist that even when you express that courage which you intellectualize,
Yes.
it's still the spirit which is in control. What's dead?
Yes. So are you saying that hasn't been made clear, or
No, go on.
yeah,
I'll just let's carry on.
you're just highlighting that?
Yeah, just highlight.
Okay, then very good. Okay, because to me it is. I'm thinking the same. I'm seeing that the same. Okay, so Gregory, I had a second point on this question about courage. About the fear of the unknown, and one was the medical example, and in a way, the second one. Well, I'm going to say it anyway because I think it needs attention. So Gregory, let's say there is some injustice going on, and we are aware that there are the laws of nature or creation that act automatically. Now, should we stand by and observe in some situation if there's injustice going on in front of us, or should we just say, okay, the laws will take care of it, because in the end everybody gets what he's supposed, what you sow you shall reap. That's one of the laws. In fact, we haven't mentioned the laws specifically today, but we know one of the laws is, or as Jesus put it, what you sow you shall reap, or as it says in the Grail message, the law of reciprocal action. So with every action there is a reaction, and it's a reciprocal of the, it comes from their action. So, so Gregory, so Mike, going back to the question again, um, yes, if there's some injustice going on that we are seeing in front of our eyes, let's say, should we should we intervene and be courageous and do something about it? I don't know if that. This, by the way, I just also want to. We have been talking about physical courage and so on. Should we, when we say intervene with courage, is it something physically we need to intervene? Somebody being hit violently, do we go in and, use physical violence on that person to stop the person, or should we send good thoughts that somehow the person will be protected, or um, or we just let the laws take care of everything? The natural laws, they will bring the result of everybody's whatever action they take.
Well, as with everything, there must be modesty. There are some situations where you can only send good thoughts, but each one will act according to how he or she perceives it intuitively. When you have the scenario of a whole military battalion going to war to crush some other people, and here you are in a scenario where you are physically unwell, how do you intend to participate, all right, physically, when you yourself can't even stand up? So the best you can do at that scenario is either to ask for help for those who are on the receiving end, because it is clearly injustice. So one has to be modest. If, on the other hand, one has the means of stopping it in one way or the other, then one should employ it. So one cannot give a clear-cut answer and say, oh, even if you are unwell in bed, stand up and then go into battle. What sort of battle can one fight when one is unwell? And one should not forget that many of these scenarios that is being discussed have been precipitated by brain cripples. You have the situation of war, you have the situation of corruption, you have the situation of wickedness, all right, gross wickedness. And you are in a position where the means that you have for interaction is so limited. Are you going to throw all into it, and then before long you are with nothing to fight with? So one has to judge each scenario and then come to a conclusion what they themselves must do. For the way I may respond to a scenario based on my knowledge or based on my conviction is different from another personality with a different conviction, because we are different human spirits, although experiencing here on earth and faced with these scenarios. So there is no hard and fast rule. This is what you must do. This is what you must do. But each one should look within themselves, and based on how they themselves have assessed it and looked at their innate capabilities, and then they may respond to it. There are some who have the so-called wherewithal in terms of money, who can put money aside to fight this. There are some who are not that endowed, but have very little. So each one, by their activities, they are able to respond to a particular scenario, which will go a very long way in helping to find a settlement.
Thank you for that, Gregory. And I want to give, I know this is a very special example, but but it follows from what you've been saying.
Yeah, I
Because,
think it's
oh, Mena, you want to say something?
yes, I agree with Gregory. That explanation now fits into what I am trying to. What
Okay, very good.
your
Very
spirit, yeah. Thank you.
okay. Thanks, thanks, Gregory. Yes, what I want to follow from what you've just said, Gregory, like a very, this is really a big example of basically Jesus. You know, we know uh, he had a big mission, and he came to proclaim the truth and save mankind basically, uh, and he stood for that. And then even though he was innocent, uh, you know he was attacked and so on, and then in the end we know that he paid for his life, for standing for the truth. So that was obviously an incredible example of courage. So should
Thanks
we,
for that example.
yeah, so are we meant to be following that type of example, that at one point where we stand for our conviction? We said about conviction, because that's the real thing, that that's a matter of principle, or yeah, something that you really believe in. And we know it's not just mere blind faith, of course. It's we've explored that already. This is something that we really, it's like something that is unjust. You stand firmly that no, this is not going to be acceptable. So there's some principle there. And so my question is really, are we meant to sort of follow Jesus in that example, where in the end, ultimately, we must be willing to die for something that we believe in? Or maybe that it was only him who was that strong that could do that really, and we are not really, we don't need to sacrifice ourselves like that.
Well, in the case of Christ, you know that it wasn't that he wanted to sacrifice himself, but he was nailed. It was against his will that he was dragged to the cross. Whatever we wish to be, whatever example we wish to show, we first, whenever injustice is encountered, we must strive to ensure that we ourselves make that effort, that in our activities, we will strive not to be unjust to those in our neighborhoods, in our environment. That is the first step. Once that has been accomplished, that will gradually change our ethereal environment, our spiritual environment, and we become strong enough to fight for others and to fight with others. The error has always been, once a person senses injustice, he or she cries out and wants to balance everything. And at the same time, that person who is crying out and crying injustice has been engaged in injustice to others without seeing it. So some of these things we see, it's only a reminder to us that we have seen that which is not right, which is unjust. We should first take this step that in our activities we should strive not to be unjust to others. with that first step, many other things can be added to us, and then the strength will be granted to us not only to see that which is unjust, but also to fight that which is unjust. But the first step is to cleanse ourselves, to purify ourselves, to understand the laws through which we ourselves have come into existence, to know why we have come here, to experience. Once these things are clear to us, then in our activities, we will ensure that we are not unjust in our interaction with others. Then every other thing that the human spirit needs will be added for its journey.
Thank you again, Gregory, for that.
Hello.
Minna, do you want to say something?
Oh yeah, I also agree with his explanation there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you again. I just want,
Yeah, can I quickly? Yeah, I want to add. The courage which Christ expressed. His spirit was pure. He knew the mission he was out to achieve, and he had to stand by it regardless, and that was the faith he put into the crucifixion.
so what you're saying, he was a strong fighter,
Yeah,
so
no, his spirit was pure, and
pure,
that's why he
pure, okay,
expressed
okay.
the courage the way he did.
Okay, so okay, that's a good, yeah. So again, it's like the determination that Gregory was pointing out.
Yeah.
So because the yeah. So thank you for that. Okay, so I've got right. Gregory, when let's say we talk about the truth, and they say the truth hurts because normally you have to point something out which is not nice about something, right? So should when we speak the truth, should it be spoken bluntly or should it be politely? Because when you do it bluntly, hits you strongly and it has power. When you speak politely, it just maybe just so gently that it has no effect on anybody. So, so when we want to speak the truth, Gregory, should we be like blunt or polite?
Being polite is a good attribute. For when Christ was asked, "And who is my neighbor?" he came out with such a perfect answer, and he turned the question of these, who is his neighbor? He didn't just say, the neighbor is this is what you must do. No. When one needs to speak that which is truth, one must understand that people are at different stages of maturity. And people are always worried because they need clarity in many an issue. And because of that, they are in a position where they can also make errors. So in empathizing with them, one comes out with a feature of politeness such that will make the other parties reflect deeper than they would have done when something is just thrust right in their face. At the same time, one should ask, how would one wish to be addressed? Bluntly or politely? As one would wish to be addressed, if one wishes to speak the truth, one should, also in a polite manner, When Christ preached, he preached in the most polite manner. He spoke in the most polite manner. So, being the example that he is, being the example of divine love, one can only say, follow him.
Okay. Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, go ahead, Mena. Go ahead.
Yeah. When Christ drove the traders from the church, was he polite in doing that?
Yes, he was polite. Now, try to read the account. When one reads the account aright, one will see what he did. He did not carry sticks or guns to drive them out, which in any scenario, even right now, one has to understand what a place of worship is and not a place of trading. So, in many scenarios, you may shout as you wish, but where it comes to that which is of spirit, one should not bring that which is of commerce. There is more to it.
Okay, thank you. The temptation of Christ and his reaction, was he polite as well?
So if you give that,
When you say the temptation
Yeah,
of
yeah, the
Christ,
temptation where he was, shown, the words, and it says, and the devil says to him,
yes,
yeah, I'll give you everything, if you worship me. What did he negotiate, his response? What did he polite?
well, the thing is, when you say, did he negotiate?
Mm.
How can the light negotiate with the darkness? The light needs not negotiate with the darkness because the light is, and the darkness subsequently will have to perish. But Christ did not say, darkness perish. If one follows very carefully the manner in which he answers questions, he asks a counter question. So that is a special case. Always watch the calm manner, even right in the cross.
thank you for that, Gregory. This is.
Yeah,
Sorry, you want to go back? Go on, Mena.
yes, it says, go, get behind me. That expression, gets behind me. It's forceful. It's not. It's not. I think it's something not. I think it's not. I mean, if you have to put it, politely, you would want to say, yeah, please, but it says, you get behind me. That expression from Christ did show some forcefulness. Don't you think so?
Can you just say it again because it wasn't clear for me? So you said,
No, no. What I'm saying, when
yeah,
Christ rebuked Satan,
yes,
when he said, get behind me, you evildoer,
get
I thought,
behind me,
yeah,
meaning to get. If I can say it a
yeah.
bit more rudely,
When
get
he
lost.
when he commanded Satan to get behind him,
Yes.
I think he did that forcefully and without, cause to whether the Satan would
Well,
accept it or not.
very quickly, one
Yeah, go on.
must say, when he said, to put it in your words, get behind me, for to get behind someone is to understand what one is doing and follow suit. Had Lucifer followed suit, then it would have been different. So even the words, get behind me, you have to interpret them in the right manner. For the light remains the light. The light shines. So whoever wishes to fulfill the will of the Father must also swing within the will of the Father. Was Lucifer swinging unconditionally in the will of the Father? When Christ said, "Get behind me," it was only an admonition for him, Lucifer, to strive, to swing unconditionally. Or were you expecting for him to say, "Get in front of me"? When Lucifer was sent down to fulfill a task which he was not fulfilling, how else would he have put it? If he didn't say get lost, he said get behind me and follow my steps.
Thank you, Gregory, for that. Um, Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdrushin. And if you would like to get a copy of the Grail Message or get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is courage. If you'd like to join in the discussion, you can contact us on this number, which is a UK number 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, this question might not sound so, let's say, how can I say, a little bit, we could have asked this a bit earlier on, but I think it's still relevant somehow. You know, when you're thinking of people who are courageous, we also have obviously people who are not courageous, and but they want to, everybody wants to live and do things in their life, and then, let's say, they do certain things to sort of, you could say, gain courage, and for example, taking drugs or things like this, and to overcome their fears. Um, you know, what would you say is the effect of that? And I mean, is it really helpful? I mean, it might sound obviously not, but some people seem to be that weak that they think they need to take these drugs. Um, I mean, what would be the effect of such, doing that sort of thing?
What one needs to understand when you say some people are that weak, are they weak physically, weak intellectually, or weak spiritually? Which one of these?
I think it's weak spiritually because if a spirit is not alert to what it's meant to be achieving on earth, it would yield to any distraction which comes its way, and that is where it goes into smoking or acts which are in direct conflict.
The
To
drugs
that,
which are taken are meant for the physical body, and that in no way enhance the ability of the spirit. For what then happens is many a time the radiations that are now put out there, which are pumped into the physical body, may to some extent strengthen parts of the body, but at the same time weakens the connection with the spirit. or exposes the spirit, and you have the spirit not understanding how to respond. It's more like a trip into illusion, for it is what the physical body is able to provide in terms of strong radiation that keeps the connection between the body and the soul going. If along the line one introduces extraneous aids, that one impairs that connection and is of no benefit to the spirit. So you will find there are some people who believe that smoking is of benefit to them. There are others who go further than that and say they take painkillers, and in doing that, they will suffer from any pain. Some go further than that and they take not only painkillers, all manner of drugs that pushes them or their awareness into an area which they don't understand. These are more like trips into imaginations and illusion.
And
They come back from such an experiment weaker for it, for they become like hothouse plants who are not strong within themselves. For the smallest challenge which they encounter here on earth, they buckle because they are not strong enough.
And of course, there's alcohol too, although people do call it a drug, of course. Um, people want looking for confidence and take alcohol and they think they're getting relaxed. And, you know, it's like, just like you said, an artificial sort of external aid uh, just to get them to be able to say what they need to say rather than be nervous and, embarrassed. Um, Okay, let's talk on another point, which is about children. You know, we bring up children. We want to give them, show them good examples, and also want them to have courage, of course, as well. So, can we teach them courage, Gregory, as children, or is it something really you can only grow up and when you grow up, basically?
Children are more like copycats, and they observe you more than you ever cared to know. Through your activities, they sense when courage is shown or when courage is not shown. So, of course, we can teach children through the examples that we ourselves engage in, such that they will then try to acquire such and they become courageous. If a child sees you in a scenario always arguing and fighting without reflecting, if a child sees you that you do not calm down to resolve issues, of course, the child using examples is most likely to pick these examples and to a large extent imitate it. And that is why many a parent must be conscious of their responsibilities. Hence, in the 10th commandment, it is said, honor fatherhood and motherhood. which commandment is given to parents and those who are in place to act as fathers and mothers.
Thank you again.
Okay.
Oh, okay, Mena, go ahead.
Yes. My response would be this. Would be like this. I'll come this way. Since I believe courage is a quality of the spirit, to the child, to be courageous in its truest sense is be to have your spirit clarified. In that way, you'll be able to express yourself more courageously, the way it will work for you. And the courage which Christ put into his mission was because his spirit was clear, was clarified. And this is where I would recommend a baptism, not a baptism of truth, where you get your spirit clarified. I mean, that is a basis for which you can truly express yourself as a spirit. Thank you.
Okay, that's okay. So, just to be clear, so you are saying that I mean, I definitely get your point about being clarified spirit, and where that's the way the courage comes from because you're clarified
Yes,
spirit.
exactly.
So, and
Yeah, definitely,
a
definitely.
child can also have a clarified spirit. That's what you're
No,
saying?
no, no.
No.
If a child, there's certain, if a child does not clarify his spirit, if he doesn't have a clarified spirit, he
Yes.
might express courage intellectually, and that way it will not express it the way it should be expressed.
Right.
And that's where it will, perhaps, seek to maybe destroy somebody, in expressing his courage. Take a knife and stab someone, and because he puts in courage, but he has just done it because he has an unclarified spirit. That is not courage. That's not the true courage which any human spirit should express.
Yes.
I don't know if you get the point.
I'm sort of slowly following that. So,
Yeah.
so no, so you are saying the child should also have a clarified spirit,
Yes, you must have a clarified spirit, and
right?
that's why you have to build. You have to grow your child in the truth, make him understand what the consequences of his actions. If
Yes.
he truly understands it, he would express his courage the way it should do.
Right. Okay. Fine. Thank you. Gregory, did
Yeah.
you want to come in at all?
One would say, leave children out of this. Let those who are the elders or the so-called matured ones, let them engage in activities which is worthy of examples, and the children will follow.
Thank you for that. And Gregory, I wanted to ask you: is there anything from the Grail message, sort of a quote about courage, that you would like to share with us? Uh, just with the listeners.
There are manifold,
Okay.
and the only thing one will say, each listener should strive to examine the work, should pick up the courage to examine this work. For the title alone, all right, speaks for itself, which says, free yourself from all darkness. He who makes no effort to grasp the word of the Lord aright burdens himself with guilt. That speaks everything. It means man requires the courage to understand the word of his maker in the right manner. Man must be determined to reach a goal, and he or she needs to walk in such a way that it is clarified within itself. That requires courage. So the whole of the message itself, the work itself, in the light of truth, the grail message, is pointing to courage. For courage is always required in order to accomplish, to move from that which one believes to personal conviction. Courage itself is a virtue which man must strive to cultivate. All others will be added.
Thank you so much for that, Gregory. You know, the reason we seem to need courage is that we always have some fear. And so the question arises in a way, why is that, why do we have these sorts of fear? Where is that fear coming from? Like, we've talked about the unknown, things are, you don't know. Of course, we don't know our future, but then it's not that so much. It's more unknown about, if there's a danger, if I do this, what will happen? If I do, if I try this, something can happen to me. So there's always this fear around us. And, but, so my question really is, yes, is that fear?
Can I say something about that?
Oh, you want to start?
Yes,
Can you finish the question first?
Okay, so
please?
basically, I think the fear, I'm sort of creating this question at the moment, in a way I'm trying to think of it. So basically the fear, is it like something self-generated by us, because of the unknown, or is it something that we are meant to, like, it's sort of planted there for us to sort of overcome obstacles, maybe? I'm making this question up, Gregory. I hadn't quite thought about it deeply. So basically, yeah, is this fear, we are just making up our own fear because there's nothing to, we just have an unknown, something is unknown? Or is it, fear is actually there, like an obstacle for us to overcome? It's like planted into us that we need to overcome things, and we need a fear to sort of drive us out, to move us forward.
May I say that, or ask a counter question? Do we fear that which we know?
No. At least from my
Most of the thing, yes. So it already means that many of the times we fear that which we do not know. And that's all the more reason we should strive to examine and come to conclusion and come to personal conviction. Then we will be out of the darkness. For what we do not know is like darkness to us. We do not fear the light, but we are afraid of the darkness. Darkness that has arisen out of ignorance. Darkness that has arisen out of laziness. Whereas what many a person is seeking for is clarity. Clarity can only come through striving after the light. Clarity comes in different forms. Many a person moves away from that which is dark. Now one can understand this work when it is with the title, In the Light, not in the darkness, in the light of truth. Since we ourselves are seeking that which is light, which gives us happiness, we do not fear the light. Therefore, we seek after it. But we fear the darkness, and the darkness presents itself through either indolence or through personal laziness in the different formats. So fear most of the time or has arisen out of that which is unknown, which has been assumed to be dark. So the human spirit needs to set itself free. Again, now maybe one can understand the title, Free Yourself from All Darkness. This is a promise. This is an admonition. Free yourself. That means free yourself from fear. Only when one knows the framework, the structures of the work which is called creation, and know how to adjust its activities, only then will one say one is free. Else, in laziness or in indolence, one is in darkness.
Thank you so much for that, Gregory. Mena, we just got only a few minutes now, so if you want to go ahead, what do you want to say?
Yeah, it's quite correct what Gregory just said. If you don't have a clarified spirit, you would not act courageously. The the trip to the crucifixion, which Christ undertook, he was it was clear to him that he was never going to be thrust through his palms. He was going to be flogged, but he went through it because he was clear that that was his mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I'm just thinking we got only a few moments, so let me see if there's any other question would be relevant now. Okay. I can't really think of anything. Victor, Mena, have you got anything you like?
Well, I could say I would like to thank the audience and the speaker for responding to the questions and giving clear answers as well, and to you for moderating and making it a success. Thank you.
Yes, and the same from me, Gregory. Thank you for your, incredible explanation of answering these questions, which are not really easy to answer. So thank you for your effort and contribution in that, and being so clear as well. So, dear listeners, thank you for joining us tonight for this topic of courage. Of course, we'll be back next week. But before I continue, I'd just like to ask Gregory, anything you'd like to say to the listeners, Gregory?
Wishing them all the strength to free themselves from all fear.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, dear listeners, I encourage you, as everybody here on the program, to pick up the Grail message, examine it, take the courage. That's what you've said. Have the courage to pick it up, and you will be, well, all I can say is you will discover something that will be a blessing. So it can only help you in your life. So please do have that courage to pick it up and examine it for yourself. And yes, we're going to be back again next Tuesday, as usual, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with another new topic. We'll find out that when we start next week. So I wish you all a great week. God bless. And hang on for the next show from Brother Sayom. All the best. Take care, everybody. Oh, Mena, would you like to say something?